Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy that you are here. What a morning I have had so far. Uh, it went down to we're supposed to do this. I was supposed to do the show this morning because I have a guest that's coming in later at the Spotify studio. As it turns out, it was the wrong studio that was booked, so I had to get back. I had to jump on the subway to come back and meet you guys. So I'm here. Are you happy that I'm here? Hi, Lemonheads. Hi. Hey, Don, Sis Dee. Where are you guys streaming from this morning? I am back in my home camera kind of studio, whatever you want to call it. Again, so I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for joining. I have had a morning. I've been everywhere, man, all over New York. So there you go. Good morning, Lemonheads. Indianapolis is Jay West. Austin, Texas is Catherine Palmyra. Maureen Marfell, good morning, Maureen from San Francisco. Maureen, hi. Hi, I'm so happy that you are here as well. Pennsylvania says Renee Glover, and Nashville says Donna Robinson. So let me just tell you guys what's going on. I'm going to play something, and then I'm going to go run and get my coffee because I forgot that, and then I'll come back. Good morning from Cincinnati, Vanetta. I'm glad that you're here as well. Bermuda for Chanelette. Wow. Man, Bermuda would be nice, wouldn't it? Be nice. Crazy. Okay, so good morning. Welcome to the Don Lemon Show. This is a little bit odd, but today I'm going to start with a history lesson, okay? So please just kind of bear with me. This was back in 1989. For those of you who are of a certain age and old enough to remember this, I remember this vaguely. Of course, I remember when George Bush, H.W. Bush was president. In 1989, Bush nominated a man. His name was John Tower. John Tower was a senator from Texas. He nominated him for Secretary of Defense. See where I'm going with this? Tower was a sharp person. He was a real intellectual, someone who deeply understood defense. This is according to reporting. I've read this, a very similar report in the different organizations. It emerged that Tower had a drinking problem back then. A drinking problem. And then when he was drinking too much, he would be too much for everyone. He would make himself a pest or worse to women around him. And for that reason, his nomination collapsed. Again, this was back in 1989, okay? So that story, the retelling of history, has become a major media scandal, and I'm going to explain shortly, but I want you to believe me when I say that there is real fear among the media right now. There's real fear among the media right now, which is a frightening prospect, which is also why you guys really need to support independent media. When I'm here saying, I need you to subscribe, I need you to hit the thumbs up, I need you to hit the hearts or whatever for the algorithm, it is true. Because we don't have that fear, and perhaps those of us who are in independent media should have that fear because we don't have the big corporations around us with all the lawyers and all of the resources, because these people are worried about retaliation from the administration. Just going to be honest. They're worried about being sued for being journalists, for reporting. They're terrified about this second term, Trump term, and what it's going to mean for freedom of speech. There is real fear. So again, whatever platform that you are following or that you're watching us on, you need to subscribe to that platform. You need to support us, not just me, but all folks who are in independent media. And for my friends who are in corporate media, who work for the cable news organizations, who work for the broadcast news organizations, who work for the big newspapers, and on and on and on, they will tell you the same thing. But it's more important for us because what? We are independent and we don't have to worry about people. Isn't that how dictatorships work? Says M-Town Boy, M-Town Boy for you. Yeah. Hi, Lawrence Johnson. Good morning from Washington Heights. Hi, my brother. Good to see you. But are you guys subscribed by this? Please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Right now, the subscriptions are free. And if you are, we're going to start having paid subscriptions. And so I'm going to tell you, you guys need to sign in onto that. So we have a lot to talk about. We also have a lot. There is a kid, I should say a young person, who also, thank you, Maya Cabe. Maya Cabe, thank you for your generous support of independent media. I appreciate that. There is a very smart kid, young person, who could possibly help solve this Thank you, Tanya Rodriguez, who could possibly help solve this issue in New York City as it relates to what happened with this United Healthcare Insurance person, the CEO. He's going to help. So I'm going to play this for you. And this is David Frum's. David Frum is on Morning Joe. David Frum makes a comment on Morning Joe. Remember, he is a contributor. He's not a reporter. He's a contributor to the network. And contributors or analysts are usually given wide berth to be able to state their opinion and what they think, and that's why they're on there. But he made this comment on Morning Joe. I believe it was yesterday, his reporting says. Let me get it here. And after he made the comment, there were some consequences. Okay. So this is David Frum's comment on Morning Joe. Here it is.
Well, just given what one sees on camera, if you're too drunk for Fox News, you're very, very drunk indeed. So that's alarming. In 1989, President George H.W. Bush nominated John Tower, senator from Texas, for Secretary of Defense. Now, Tower was a very considerable person, a real defense intellectual, someone who deeply understood defense, unlike the current nominee. And it emerged that Tower had a drinking problem. And when he was drinking too much, he would make himself a nuisance or worse to the women around him. And for that reason, his nomination collapsed in 1989. You don't want to think that our moral standards have declined so much that you could say, let's take all the drinking, all the sex pesting, subtract any knowledge of defense, subtract any leadership, and there's your next Secretary of Defense for the 21st century.
So there you go. Hang on. I need the MJ producers. I need the Morning Joe response this morning, because they did respond this morning, and I need that. And make sure we have that tape ready. They responded this morning. So right after that, this is what happened with Joe and Mika. Here it is.
Before we go to break, a little bit earlier in this block, there was a comment made about Fox News in our coverage about Pete Hegseth and the growing number of allegations about his behavior over the years and possible addiction to alcohol or issues with alcohol. The comment was a little too flippant for this moment that we're in. We just want to make that comment as well. We want to make that clear. We have differences in coverage with Fox News, and that's a good debate that we should have often. But right now, I just want to say there's a lot of good people that work at Fox News who care about Pete Hegseth, and we'll want to leave it at that.
Okay. What do you guys think of that? Was that warranted? What did you think? Did they need to do that? Why were they explaining? They went on this morning, and there was a huge explanation. Now, I want to know what you think, because remember, Joe and Mika were they went down to Mar-a-Lago. They have faced some real backlash for that. Now, whether it's warranted or not, I will let you decide. But I think that, the response to them is a bit different because they have been, such outspoken critics of the president-elect and the former president. They have been really, really outspoken critics. And so my question is, is that warranted? What do you think? Why would they do that? It's not an apology. It's kind of a tacit apology. Some people would say it's a CYA. And look, when they responded this morning, they actually asked for him to come on, for David Frum to come on to explain what he had to say this morning. So they asked for him to come on because he put out a post. I don't know if we have the full screen of it. We should have the full screen of what he said. So he wrote something in the Atlantic. And he says, let me get what he has said here in the Atlantic. So he wrote a post in the Atlantic about that moment. And I'm going to read to you what he had to say about it. Okay. Here it is. If I can find it. I had it last. There we go. Okay. So here we go. So he said, it's called The Sound of Fear on the Air. He said, it's an ominous sign that Morning Joe felt it had to apologize for something that I said. And he goes on to say, this morning, I had an unsettling experience, he says. I was invited onto MSNBC Morning Joe to talk from the studio in Washington, D.C. about an article I had written on Trump's approach to foreign policy. Before getting to the article, I was asked about the nomination of Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, specifically about an NBC News report that his heavy drinking worried colleagues at Fox News and at the veterans organizations he had headed. A spokesman for the Trump transition told NBC, these disgusting allegations are completely unfounded and false, and anyone peddling these defamatory lies to score political cheap shots is sickening. Okay. So he said, I answered by reminding viewers of some history. And he talked about what he just said in 1989. And he goes on to say that. He said, I told the story in pungent terms. It's cable TV, after all. And I introduced the discussion with a joke. If you're too drunk for Fox News, you're very, very drunk indeed. I mean, what am I missing here? At the next ad break, a producer spoke into my ear. He objected to my comments about Fox, and he warned me not to repeat them. I said something non-committal, got another round of warning. After the break, I was asked a follow-up question on a different topic about President Joe Biden's pardon of his son. I did not revert to the earlier discussion, not because I had been warned, but because I had said my piece. I was then told that I was excused from the studio chair. Shortly afterward, co-host Mika Brzezinski read an apology for my remarks. And that's the apology. That's what they said was an apology. Now, this morning, Morning Joe is saying that that is not an apology. He says, David Frum, the journalist, says, she's right, of course. There are good people at Fox News. But if NBC's reporting, based on interviews with 10 current or former Fox employees about Hegseth's alcohol abuse is accurate, many of those same good people have failed to report publicly that their former colleague appointed to lead the armed forces of the United States was notorious in their own building for his drinking. That would be a startling and shameful shirking of responsibility on a matter of grave national importance. What's the appropriate language to call it? What's the appropriate language to call it out? I'm a big admirer of Morning Joe's show and the commitment of all involved to bringing well-informed political discussion to a national audience. I recognize, too, that the prominence of the program has exposed the hosts and producers to extraordinary pressures and threats, and goes on to talk about that. But then he ends, I think, by something saying, he talks about what he has written here. And he says, I write these words very aware that I'm probably saying goodbye forever to television, a television platform that I enjoy and from which I have benefited as both viewer and guest. I have been the recipient of personal kindness from the hosts that I have not forgotten. I do not write to scold anyone. I write because, and this is the important part, and I believe it's true, fear is infectious. Let it spread, and it will paralyze us all. The only antidote is courage, and that's infectious too. And I agree 100%. And that's why I say you must support your independent media. If you have people who are, and I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying that there is no legitimacy to the, Joe and Mika having some fear or some concern about being retaliated against by the administration. I'm also not saying that they should not have taken a meeting with him, but the circumstances around that meeting are questionable. And how they did it and the timing, that's questionable. And how they have been such really strong critics of the former president, it's questionable. It makes their viewers see them in a different light. And I do believe, I know that it affects their credibility. Again, I'm not saying that they should not have met with him. I don't know if they needed to go down to Mar-a-Lago. Perhaps they should have asked for an interview request, as I have stated before. Let me know what you think. But look, David Frum has his idea and experience of what happened, and then Morning Joe has theirs. So I want to know what you think. I'm going to let Morning Joe explain what they said this morning, and then we'll talk about it, because this is concerning. Here it is.
But let me tell you something. I wasn't fearful in Congress when Newt Gingrich and leadership said they were going to destroy me, run people against me. I said, go ahead, make my day. Wasn't fearful on this show. Nobody in the front office. By the way, I always have Republicans say, oh, they're telling you exactly what to say in the front. No, nobody's once told me what to say here. So we need to stand shoulder to shoulder and keep fighting and have no fear, show no fear, because as FDR said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
The meeting that we went to was not kissing the ring or bending the knee or all your other ridiculous headlines. It was a serious meeting. And quite frankly, if we hadn't told anyone about it, if we hadn't shared it with our viewers to be transparent, and that was our call because it was a meeting on background, nobody would have known about it.
The only thing we did that caused this Twitter storm is we told you. Now, if you'd prefer that we don't tell you everything that we do, that's fine. But we just thought in this case, transparency was best.
This is really tough. Okay, this is a really tough one for me. Number one, they're going to say, who are you to criticize them? Okay, here's the thing. I've been on the show. I've gone on once for my book. I have a really great relationship with Joe. I don't know Mika that well. I mean, I've met her before, but I don't really know her. I don't really want to beat them up. But when you're explaining, you're losing. Why are they explaining? And I don't understand, because I've anchored, I anchor 2 hours a night for 8 years. Unless something was really egregious, we never had something where a producer would come on the ear of a contributor, especially who's there for their opinion, and say something like that. But saying you're too drunk for Fox News is not. If someone had said, if you're too drunk for the Don Lemon show, then we would just kind of laugh it off, like, who cares? If you're too drunk for Fox News, then, maybe there's some issues. Maybe there's some alcohol issues in the family that they're sensitive to. I don't know. But no one has said that he was an out and out alcoholic. No one has said that. Look, but the things that they say about other people on that show, I think Joe and Mika have said things that are far worse about people than what David Frum said about Fox News. And I don't know what kind of allegiance that Joe and Mika have to Fox News. I just feel like Joe and Mika have been doing a lot of explaining lately. And if I had made the decision to go down to Mar-a-Lago, I would just have said, that's my decision, and I'm sticking to it. I mean, am I wrong? I mean, do you think I'm being too hard on them? Like, why are they explaining so much? Why are they explaining so much? They're afraid of ending up on Trump's enemies list, says D. Talley. By the way, thank you for your support. Why are they afraid of ending up on the list? They should be stronger about that. Joe and Mika, let me just say this. Joe and Mika have the means to be able to fight back against Donald Trump. And not only do they have the means financially, they have, and they probably wouldn't even have to use their own if they had to. Let's just say that there was a court case. The network they would be indemnified by the network. And would be a great example to the world about courage as a journalist, as journalists. I know of at least one journalist who's being sued by Donald Trump, George Stephanopoulos, for citing a report in the Washington Post regarding what the judge said about the the essay allegations, not allegations, the verdict of E. Jean Carroll. When the judge clarified afterwards, saying it was akin to grape. I'm saying that for the algorithm. You know what I'm talking about. And just from citing that report and saying that he's being sued for it, and there may be others as well. But it is fear, but it's not, tranquil rain says lost all respect for them, but it's not just them. They're just the latest example, and the spotlight is on them. If the spotlight wasn't on them, perhaps it would be on other people. Perhaps it would be on, it'll go to other people. So I don't understand what's going on with Joe and Mika. Maybe I'll text Joe and ask him, like, what's up? Because of all people, I would have thought that Joe Scarborough, being a former Republican, I'm not sure where he is. I think he's a former Republican, and I know he's a former Republican congressman, that he would just say, F it. Of course he would welcome the opportunity to do an interview with the president. Of course he would welcome the opportunity to meet with him. But did he have to do it so fast and in that manner? This one, I am torn about this because I want to support them, but they're too much explaining. Joe had just said, look, that was my decision to meet. That's it. He also mentioned in his response this morning that he invited David Frum on the program. And then he said, he said he couldn't come on today, invited him on today. He said, David Frum said I can come on Friday. Joe Scarborough says, I will be down, I'll be somewhere doing an interview with the former president, Bill Clinton. And he said, perhaps Bill Clinton in an interview, while he's there, will give me something on background that will give me perspective on where the Democratic Party is going, the future of the Democratic Party. And he said there were things in their talk with Donald Trump that gave him some perspective and insight on background that as a journalist, do they consider themselves journalists? I don't know. I know Mika does. And I'm not saying that's not disparaging. I'm not saying that because Joe is a former congressman. So I guess, just by default, Joe is as well. But it's really, really scary, I believe, because I think that a lot of people, when people don't tell the truth, usually they're long-winded explanations, says Christine. I'm worried that the media is they're acquiescing too much. And they are just like, we need to do this, we need to do that. We have to remember, and I don't believe that Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, I don't think they've forgotten just what a terrible person Donald Trump has been. Mika is a very strong supporter of women publicly. And, to have, the E. Jean Carroll of it all, the 34 criminal counts of it all, the liable for sexual assault, according to the judge, grape of it all, to have that out there to be true, I don't understand. And Pete Hegseth, the same thing. There's outrage. They appear to be outraged by some things and then not about others. Sometimes they appear to be outraged about folks I found in the media and even there, outraged about and upset about things that people say or what they believe that they have said rather than their actions. I think the folks who are in independent media, like myself and others, I think maybe we have more to worry about, again, because we don't have the big system behind us, and they will try to crush us, right? The audits, you better watch what you say. They will try. But for the big organizations that are news organizations, that they should not be worried. But here's why they're worried: because they want to do business with the administration. They want their mergers and acquisitions to be able to go through without a problem, without Donald Trump holding them up. They want all sorts of whatever they may need. They don't want any resistance from the FCC chair, the incoming FCC chair. Like, it's not just about Mika and Joe. It's not just about the faces that are out there and the journalists who are standing there, and they should be the bulwark between fascism, dictatorship. They're supposed to be the folks holding the feet to the fire for people in high places, truth to power, without fear or favor. But it's not just them. They've got the corporate owners' influence over them that they are concerned about. Do not say anything that's going to rile up the administration, or we're going to have some problems. They're going to go after us. They're going to go after our license. We won't be able to get this cleared and that done and this and that and this and that. That's fucked up, y'all. That's really, for the American media, that is really frightening and scary and jacked up. It's not what American journalism is supposed to be about. Is this why people are turning off the mainstream media? But is this why they're turning off the mainstream media? And do you believe it is fear? Aaliyah Hunter says, do not obey in advance. We are America, not China, says Petty Things. Yes, says Anne of Green Gables. We need to revolt, says Steph in the City. Yes, it's FU, says Linda Furker. Yes, it is. So then where do we go? Where does journalism go from here? Because even if you look at it, even if, I think it's also a good place now to bring some sunlight into just how this works. And if those guys who are in front of the camera and the people who are there in mainstream media, if they actually stood up to their bosses, if they actually said, we're not going to deal with this, we need to bring some sunlight to this, then it would have to change. Because they can't fire them all. And if they do, then that makes them look bad. So maybe there's something good to come out of this. I don't know. I don't believe it, though, because I think that as long as they are using as long as people are buying and acquiring media organizations, number one, because it's, some sort of vanity play for them, right? Some sort of ego play for them, or they are using it to promote their own product as a promotion tool for the entertainment wing of the country and the company, or it helps the bottom line. It's easier and cheaper profits than putting out a multi-million-dollar movie. Unless that changes, then nothing is going to change. This is bad. And I need to, and Joe and Mika, first thing in the morning, you turn on your TV, Joe and Mika, we need you to stand up. We need you guys to do what you were doing and saying, calling truth to power. And I know that you say you're going to continue to do it, but it is concerning because every time something happens, like David Frum is a good dude. And David Frum is no novice. And if he's used to being on that show and knowing how it works and knowing that there's some flippancy there. They're flippant. They're too cute by half sometimes. They go a little far, which is why they are successful, is because they aren't anodyne. They aren't bland. They aren't milquetoast. It's because Joe Scarborough leans in. It's because Mika also leans in, but Mika is an adult and she allows Joe to be Joe. And she knows, I think, I could be wrong, that the show is Morning Joe. Like, it's Joe and her. The combination is great. But Joe is the secret sauce. Not even the secret sauce. Joe is the sauce. That's why the show is called Morning Joe. David Frum tells it like it is. And David Frum has been on that show and he knows how it operates. He's very familiar with it. And then all of a sudden he's on there and then a producer is saying whatever. And something that he said no one would ever have picked that up. It would not have gotten the press that it has gotten had they not made such a big deal out of it. It's really interesting. Really weird and interesting. Other comments that happened there, that's garnering attention, and someone mentioned it in the chat just moments ago. Olivia Troye's Kash Patel comments on MSNBC. Here it is.
You know, I assume I've met Kash Patel. What do you make of this nomination and the clear terror that it is unleashing in Washington?
Well, I think that these Republican senators and everybody who is familiar with the name Kash Patel also know the danger that he poses. And that is because it is a well-known thing in these inner circles by anyone who worked with Kash. And I worked with Kash in the White House. I was Vice President Mike Pence's counterterrorism advisor. So I had to coordinate with Kash a lot. Kash Patel is a delusional liar. Let me just be very clear about that. And he would lie about intelligence. He would lie about making things up on operations. I think Mark Esper has talked about that as well, where he put the lives of Navy SEALs at risk in an operation when it came to Nigeria. These are things that actually were happening in real time when he was in the role of CT coordinator in the White House. And I know this because at some point I realized that I needed to double check Kash's work to make sure that I wasn't misinforming Mike Pence by relying on his word. So I had to go around him. And this is a guy who openly has contempt for people in national security, for people especially at DOJ and the FBI. He made open comments like this. And so I think, there is a little bit of fear here from people where they know that someone like Kash Patel is fully capable of just doing partisan investigations, whatever it takes. It will be insane if he becomes the director of the FBI. And I fear for the law enforcement personnel there who are going to have to navigate this. And quite honestly, when I look at Kash Patel in combination with what is Pam Bondi going to do if she gets in as AG, is that top cover for him? I mean, these are all the things that concern me when I see all of these names being proposed for all of these different positions, because this is a very real risk and to the detriment of Americans, to be clear. It really ultimately hurts the American people.
Okay. So because of those comments, Kash Patel has threatened to sue Olivia Troye for that. Kash Patel, who is the president-elect's pick to lead the FBI, has threatened legal action against a former aide to ex-Vice President Pence over her comments criticizing Patel. Olivia Troye is a former counterterrorism aide to Mike Pence. She became a vocal critic of Trump on MSNBC. That happened earlier this week. Said that Kash Patel would lie about intelligence and lie about making things up on operations, going as far as to say he put the lives of Navy SEALs at risk. Olivia Troye says, let me get to the full screen so that I could read it. Kash Patel sent a letter to my counsel. She names a counsel, threatening legal action and demanding that I retract my comments on MSNBC about his unfitness to serve as FBI director. This aligns with his threats against the media and political opponents, revealing how he might conduct himself if confirmed in the role. I stand by my statements. My priority remains the safety and security of the American people. I am not the only one who has expressed concerns about him, so why me? And so it begins. Olivia Troye, thank you. That is how you respond. All she said is, I stand by my statements. My priority remains the safety and security of the American people. I'm not the only. Thank you, Olivia Troye. Good for her. Good for her. Joe, Mika. That's all you have to say. If you believe, just stand by it. Do you think Fox News or, I don't know, someone is going to sue you for making a little quip about if you're too drunk for Fox News? And no one would write that. Most people, someone would write it if they're doing an editorial. Of course they would write that. They would say that on other networks. What am I missing? What am I missing, guys? That's her tweet. Olivia Troye has a letter. We can put that up. I think that must be is that the letter to her attorney that we have? Yeah, this law firm represents Kash Patel. Litigation will be filed against you if you fail to publicly retract defamatory statements you made about Mr. Patel on MSNBC on December 2nd, 2024. Here we go. And when you start to acquiesce, when you start to capitulate, that's when you allow that to happen. On December 2nd, you appeared live as a guest on MSNBC and you made several false and defamatory statements about Mr. Patel. These comments include that Mr. Patel would lie about intelligence and would lie about making things up on operations to the point where Mr. Patel put the lives of Navy SEALs at risk. If she's saying she has the receipts and she's saying, I stand by my statements. And she worked in the Trump administration. Do we have what Kash Patel said about, I think we had it the other day. Do we have what Kash Patel said about how he's going to go after the media? If you can find it, you guys find it. Here's Sam Stein on Kash Patel's threat. Watch.
I guess I'm kind of shocked, to be honest, that he would do this. I mean, not that he doesn't believe in using legal threats to bludgeon his opponents and go after the media. Like, he's been pretty open about it. He said it a bunch of times that they would use, the government to go after opponents. What surprises me is that in the crucible of a Senate confirmation process that's to come, knowing fully well that this is the knock against him, that he would sort of aggressively use the government to do this, that he would in fact affirm the concerns of people around his candidacy. I mean, look, Olivia's on MSNBC making a point about him and his actions during the Trump administration, and she's saying stuff that's already been reported. And he is going to say, he's going to threaten her legally for that. That's, to me, that is a very ominous sign of what he would do if he actually were in the FBI and actually did have the resources of the agency at his disposal.
Sam Stein on the Bulwark. That is it. Guys, and guess what? Guess what? You know who has the ultimate power here? You guys. You guys. Here is Kash Patel talking about how he's going to retaliate against people.
Confident that when you go back and is a senior member of this administration, President Trump's administration, starting in the afternoon of the 20th of January of 2025, do you feel confident that you will be able to deliver the goods, that we can have serious prosecutions and accountability? And I want the Morning Joe producers that watch us and all the producers that watch us, this is just not rhetoric. We're absolutely dead serious. We're not. You cannot have a constitutional republic and allow what these deep staters have done to the country. The deep state, the administrative state, the fourth branch of government never mentioned in the Constitution, is going to be taken apart brick by brick. And the people that did these evil deeds will be held accountable and prosecuted, criminal prosecutions. Kash, I know you're probably going to be head of the CIA, but do you believe that you can deliver?
Did you hear what he said? He mentioned Morning Joe, MSNBC. He mentioned them specifically. Is that what's going on? Here's Kash's response.
The goods on this in a pretty short order the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon, and you know those guys. I'm not going to go out there and say their names right now so the radical left-wing media can terrorize them. But, excuse me, the one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-around is we got to put in all America patriots top to bottom. And we got them for law enforcement. We got them for intel collection. We got them for offensive operations. We got them for DOD, CIA, everywhere. And the one thing we will do that they never will do is we will follow the facts and the law and go to courts of law and correct these justices and lawyers who have been prosecuting these cases based on politics and actually issuing them as lawfare. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. And Steve, this is why they hate us. This is why we're tyrannical. This is why we're dictators.
They're going to come after the media. They're going to go after the judges. Does this not concern you guys? And so as I'm saying here, you guys have the power. You get to decide what happens with all of this. And I believe that's the next big movement. There needs to be a freedom in journalism movement or something. Otherwise, we're in trouble. That's why we need Joe and Mika. We need Joy Reid to stay strong. We need Joe and Mika. We need Rachel Maddow. We need the folks over at ABC. We need the folks over at my former place to be stronger. We need the folks who are in corporate media to not allow their bosses or their owners or their corporate overlords, that their tendency to cozy up to power affect their journalism. Because then why do it? Why would you do it? The salary is important. I know that's very enticing, but I mean, I believe that as journalists, you make a commitment, as you do as doctors do with the Hippocratic Oath, as attorneys do. I think journalists are the same thing. At least it should be. I have an interesting story to tell you about that we are working on, and I wanted to bring it to you now, but I don't have the time because I spent so much time on this. But is this how I wanted to update you on what is happening with this CEO of United Healthcare, former CEO, who was unalived yesterday in New York City. And there is an unusual way that he is being, the suspect is being tracked down by someone that you at least expect. And I am reaching out to that person to try to get them to discuss it on the program. But for now, I would just tell you, look, guys, you gotta continue to support us. You've gotta, we have to figure out a way that how we respond to this. Because I believe that everyone is important. I believe that this is a David versus Goliath situation. And I believe the Goliath isn't what you think. The Goliath is not the Trump folks, right? That's Oz, honestly. We need a mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore moment for journalists here. The Goliath is the corporate big media. David is us. David is me. David is David Pakman. David is Brian Tyler Cohen. David is Tim Miller. David is Cenk Uygur. David is my friend over at Higher Ground, Van Lathan, and Rachel over with Van. David is the independent media and the folks who can tell you these things without all of that. People have the power to change this country, says Mumbiya, and Mumbiya. And I agree with that. And we've got to do it. And we can't be afraid. You guys have to stand by us and you have to support us. You can't let people who want a dictatorship to allow you to believe that you're biased because you're reporting the truth and because you're putting their own words in front of them and you're asking them to explain. What did you mean by this? Why did you say this? And their actions. What happened? Were you drinking at work, Pete Hegseth? So anyways, thank you all. I'll see you throughout the day, and I'll update you. We'll see you at 5 o'clock, okay, Eastern time. So make sure you hit the thumbs up. I know someone in there said, hey, we have a lot of engagement this morning and not enough thumbs up. So make sure you do that for us. The engagement is great, guys. Thank you. And growing our memberships. Our subscriptions are growing. So make sure you like and subscribe, hit the hearts, and we will see you a little bit later on. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you hit the like button. It helps us with the algorithm. And also, we'd love for you to become a subscriber. So hit that button, too. We're live every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 5 p.m. Eastern, so there's plenty of content for you to check out.